All right, it's 9:19 as your first shift continues. WRMN Morning Wake-Up Call. We're still on Facebook Live. Never have stopped the original feed because there's still some comments I wanted to get to later on in the show. Been a busy, fast show, so I haven't been able to get to everybody this morning. And Greg Schiller is here with us now. He's been here before, but it's been a couple of years. And but he's still very involved with the homeless community. And how's it going, Greg?
It's going good. Thanks for having me.
Good, man. Thanks for coming in. Last time, I guess you were here, it was kind of when you had kind of made the news about keeping some people at your house.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago.
The city didn't appreciate that.
Yeah. But you were trying to fight for your homeless people.
No, I was afraid that, when the shelter wasn't opening and it was getting down below 15 degrees, or at least the wind chill was getting below 15 degrees, I was afraid that we might have people freezing to death out here on the street. I wasn't going to let it happen.
Well, and so I guess why don't you describe like your position in Elgin and how it relates to the homeless population? Because you always kind of are back and doing things with the homeless, and you've been involved and interested in helping that population out for a long time around here.
Yeah, about almost 8 years. My first service with the people in need of the Elgin community was in April of 2013. And that was with Love Elgin Day. I was a prayer intercessor at the Vineyard Church that day. And that's, I came here specifically to work with the homeless and people in need. I felt that, my God was telling me to go and help take care of these people. So I came, and that's what I've been doing ever since. I've dedicated my life to it.
You came here. So why was it Elgin, Illinois?
I have no idea.
Really?
This is just where I landed. Let me tell you, look, when I left New Mexico, I left not knowing where I was going, just knowing I was going to Illinois. And I came on a motorcycle with nothing but a duffel bag and my skateboard. And this is where I landed.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. I mean, I like the city.
I didn't even know where I was going to live.
You came into town? Really?
Really.
That's a interesting adventure. You come to town and you got to figure it all out when you get here, huh?
I didn't have to figure anything out. I mean, within a month of being here, the ministry found me, and I ended up smack in the middle of it. Like I said, my first service to the people in need here was at the Vineyard Church as a prayer intercessor during Love Elgin Day. From there, I was asked to join Street Reach. And for a couple of years, I was the assistant director of Street Reach. I've planted another ministry here, which managed the temporary shelter during the wintertime for 2 winter seasons. I've worked with several groups. Currently, I'm the outreach director for a local 501c3 called Project Give Hope, and we are a street outreach. We go and try and help people that need help in whatever way that happens to be. However that looks, we try to provide for the needs.
So were you then homeless at first? Like, were you when you first came here with a motorcycle and a duffel bag?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. Someone saw my post on Facebook that I was headed to Illinois and asked, "Are you coming here?" I said, "Yeah." They said, "Where are you going to live?" I said, "I don't know." And they said, "Hey, stay here."
Okay.
And that's just kind of how it started.
Yeah. So let me think. So the Elgin homeless population, this is a city, we've talked about it with so many different people, so many different times over the last few years here on the radio station, that it's the only city in the area that has homeless type shelters.
Well, no, it's not the only city in the area. I mean, Aurora, which is, right down the road, just south of us.
Yeah.
They have a really big shelter called Hesed House. Their PADS program takes in, I think the number is 200 people a night. They also have transitional living there. They have their own clinic. They have their own store. Rockford, which is the next larger city to the northwest, they have a few shelters there.
Okay, but I guess I'm talking about like Bartlett, St. Charles.
Okay, yeah. If
Dundee.
You're talking about bordering towns, we're the only one that has those resources.
So a lot of homeless and potentially homeless people realize that. So that's why That's why Elgin has a larger homeless population.
Sure. It's also the end of the train line.
Yeah.
from downtown Chicago. So, and other police departments have picked up homeless on the street, put them on the train, and sent them here.
Is that right?
No lie.
Wow.
They get off the train and they're like, okay, now what do I do? We have soup kitchens, we have all kinds of resources for the homeless. So,
And that's why they do that, right?
this is some place that they tend to migrate. Yeah,
Do you have any idea how many homeless people are in Elgin right now?
about 200.
Yeah. About 200.
Some of them are housed. That includes the people that are in shelter, which is pads or crisis center. People that are couch surfing that don't have an actual home of their own, but they're staying on a friend's couch or somebody who met them on the street. We've had people that meet the homeless and try to give them a place to stay. Take them in. Some of the volunteers from the churches that I work with have done that. And we have now 2 tent camps. We've got 30 in one, and the second one, which is the new one, fluctuates between 10 and 20, depending on who's there every night.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got probably about a dozen or more that are just wandering around the street down here downtown.
Yeah, I pretty much see them every day, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure you do, walking by here. Did they wave? They walk by the window and wave at you?
They don't really wave too much at me yet. I guess they don't know me that well yet, but I see them all the time. There's certain little areas around here where they like to crawl into for a little while.
Sure.
Like that place right across the street. But now that Moni has opened up, she's made sure that her walkway's clear in the morning and things like that. But we see it down here at the end of the street here, too. There's another little opening where in the mornings I'll come in and someone might be laying down there or whatnot.
Little places to get out of the wind.
Yeah. Saw a guy around the corner over on this side yesterday when I was walking down the street. Anyway, so Tent City's been around for quite some time. That's the one that's the first.
Yeah, that's been there for years.
Yeah. And you're a part of the new one, right? I mean, as far as
I helped set up a new camp. There were several new homeless that were living in Carlton Rogers Park, which is right across the street from the parking deck and surrounded by the churches downtown here. And it became a real issue because many of them were not behaving, and they were trashing the park. And I know there were complaints about feces and people being accosted. I think I read that a couple down there was robbed. They were mugged.
Yeah.
There was a fight in the park. A guy got stabbed, I heard. Just all kinds of craziness going on in the park. And when I've been there, while they were staying there, I saw the fights. I heard how loud they got. And, there's a lot of addiction issues in that particular crowd. And I knew this was not good for them because now the police had to intervene. The police had to be there on a regular basis and be, I don't want to use the word harassing because they were doing their job because these people did become a problem. But I saw a solution and spoke with my volunteers, and I mentioned it to a couple of people with DPD where I wanted to take them, and they basically told me, we can't give you an official okie dokie, but if you can get them to leave the park and get them into that camp, do it. So I did. And I packed them all up, and me and my volunteers, we brought them down there, and I did this all in a week. Got sleeping bags, tents, all kinds of stuff. I built an outhouse for them out there at the camp. Got food and just, things they needed to survive. And since bringing them out there, 90% of them haven't even come back into downtown. They've stayed out that way, so the park is now clean. There's only a few people in the park now, and I'm sure the business owners downtown are much happier. I know I would be if I was a business owner down here.
Sure.
Because it was nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I saw many times when I drive by over there, and sometimes as I was driving by there, I hear an argument going on or something like that in the park.
That was all day, every day.
Yeah.
Now they're doing it in a camp away from everybody.
So I guess as long as they're away from everybody, do what you do, right?
Right. The police know exactly where it is. They've actually, the camp's only been there now about 2 weeks, and they've already been down there twice.
Really?
Yeah.
To check it out, or because they?
No, because they got calls.
Really? So I mean, the police still. I mean, if you're acting out and not, disturbing the peace or whatever, then you should be arrested, regardless of you're
Sure.
homeless or not, right?
Sure. Whoever you are, if you're not behaving while out in public, or even in your home, I mean, if you're gonna hurt someone, yeah, the police need to do their job.
Yeah.
You know, and I commend the police in this town because they have been really gracious with the homeless and the way they treat them. I mean, they've done things for them that I haven't seen other police departments do. Like, we've had guys that needed train tickets to get someplace, to get to a family member out of town, and I've seen Elgin police officers pull money out of their pocket to buy the ticket and help this person get to their family member so they wouldn't be homeless on the street here in Elgin. I mean, this police department is awesome. I love them. Chief Lally, she's great. Everybody I've had contact with the police department has just been great.
We have Greg Schiller with us, advocate of the homeless. He helps them out. He tries to figure out ways to get them out of their situation if that's what they want to do. And at the same time, I guess, helping downtown in a way, too, by, it's an eyesore and it's a problem. If not only an eyesore, but if they are physically acting out in the middle of a public park in the middle of your downtown,
it's a real
good.
problem. It's not just not pretty. You know, it's one thing if it were just a site, but it's not just the site. It's all those issues, coming to life right here in a public park, right in the middle of downtown, that, I mean, is causing problems for everybody in proximity to the park. The businesses, the churches, people that want to walk through the park, people that are, maybe parking at the parking deck across the street and then trying to walk to a shop or whatever and being accosted by people. You can't have that. But these are people. They have a lot of issues, but they're still people, and we still need to be compassionate towards them, even though sometimes they don't know how to behave.
Yeah. So, and you're saying that a lot of the folks that were sleeping in Carlton Rogers Park, this is kind of a new group of homeless people.
Yeah,
right?
this summer the homeless population grew quite a bit. I have to believe that part of it is because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
But seeing the group that I've been working with lately and their issues, it doesn't surprise me that they're homeless because, if anybody walked by the park, they knew how they were behaving. They heard all of the ruckus and they saw all the garbage. So they need a lot of help. They need guidance. Many of them need rehabilitation. There's a lot of drugs and alcohol involved in the behavior.
Yeah. So is that are there characteristics of the younger homeless population that differ from the older homeless population?
Yeah, the younger population seems to be more boisterous. The older guys, we see them all the time. They've been a fixture here for years. They don't typically bother anybody unless they're, they'll panhandle on the corners or whatever, trying to get beer money. But the younger population, some of them seem like they're out of control. I mean, they're out here in the park fighting, physically fighting with each other and, having knockdown dragouts right in the middle of the park, right in front of God and everybody, and it kind of spills over into the rest of the neighborhood. It's not good.
And one of the things about, this downtown area, it's been kind of in flux for a long time as far as building businesses in the down and making
the downtown's had problems for a while now, just on its own, without that added contingent going on in the park.
So it's a constant battle of we want to support and help people that are in need, and we have those resources here in the city of Elgin right now to do that. Maybe where some of the Dundees, the St. Charles's, places that their downtowns are thriving. And people don't mind going down there because they don't have that same fear that they might have if they come down here.
Sure.
And they see that happening, or if they're going to park their car in the parking garage and they see a fight going on across the street or something like that.
Right. Well, I think the average resident is, not going to want to be a part of any of that. I mean, people think I'm crazy for wanting to be a part of it, but I'll put myself right in the middle of it, and try to stop it. But, it's like I said, they're people. They have problems. They need and they deserve love and compassion. And one thing that I found with working with people in need is that if you show to them that they can trust you by being there, no matter how they act, no matter what they do, no matter what their issues are, if you still will come alongside them they'll come to trust you. And then once that trust and that relationship is built with them, the door can open for rehabilitation. Because by and large, the issue is alcoholism or drug addiction with a lot of these people. Granted, some of them, it doesn't look like there's any hope for them at all. Like, I'm sure you've seen the older guys that have been out here for years and years and years, and they just stay drunk all day and bumble around and panhandle money for beer, and just that's how they live. And they've resigned themselves to that life and dying out here on the street. But when I see people like this new group, who are in their 20s and their 30s, for them, because of their age, there's hope. They haven't been out here that long. They're brand new. If you can get a hold of them and get them into some kind of rehab, you can get them off the street. You can get them back into being a beneficial part of the community instead of, something that's pulling resources from the community and causing problems. Mm. And that's the end result for this, that we hope, all of us, everyone who volunteers with the homeless, the hope is that we'll be able to get them off the street. But it takes time, and it takes trust from them. Most people walk up to them, they're not going to trust them because they don't know them. If anything, they'll take advantage of whatever they might be offering, but they're not really going to trust them. I spend a lot of time with these people, so I've developed a lot of relationships. And in the past, we've been able to get a few off the street. Granted, there's a lot more failures than there are success stories, but, it's not about the numbers. It's about just being there.
Yeah. So with the new camp, it sounds like you have it's a camp with a lot of action, a lot of
yeah, it's crazy. I've actually had homeless that were down there that actually I had a gentleman come to me at the breakfast this morning. I was working at the Vineyard breakfast, and he sat down with me. He's like, "Man, I got to apologize. I thank you for everything that you gave me. I thank you for the tent, the sleeping bag, and everything, but I can't stay down there. It's too crazy."
Really?
Yeah, he's telling me it's 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. They're still partying and yelling and making all kinds of noise. And he's like, "How am I supposed to get sleep and be able to get up in the morning and go look for a job?" And I get it. It makes total sense for someone who's at the point where they don't want to be homeless. They're just looking at this as a temporary situation and trying to get out of it. Being in that environment is not conducive to doing that.
Yeah. So where does a person like that go then? Where is the best place for him to go next so he can try to get that job?
There really is nowhere other than finding some hole here downtown that he can crawl into at night that's out of sight where no one will bother him, so he can get up in the morning, go to the breakfast, get something to eat, and then go out looking for a job.
So he doesn't qualify to go to pads or any of the...
I don't know what his particular situation is, but apparently not. Otherwise, I think he would be there. There are several who can't get into pads for various reasons, whether it be criminal background, current drug and alcohol abuse users. I don't know what all the rules are at pads, but I know that because of the restrictions, that's why we see so many people out here on the street, because there are a lot that can't get in.
Are there this camp where there's all this noise and stuff going on in the middle of the night? So this new camp is like far away, enough away?
There's no residents anywhere near it.
Really?
Yeah, I think the nearest house to the camp is probably over 500 yards away. It's a remote location. It involves a lot of walking to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's why a lot of them have not come back downtown, because it is such a walk. But they have their own space, and the police aren't back there bothering them. They can behave any way they want in that space as long as they keep it in that space and nobody there calls the police. I think the 2 times the police have been back there is because they received a call from someone in the camp.
Mm-hmm. So if you're kind of far off in the middle of nowhere like that or whatever, they do have to come to town at some point to get some whatever makes them party in the middle of the night and eat and stuff like that, right?
From the camp, there are things that are about 15, 20-minute walk that they can get to where they can go panhandle their money and buy their alcohol or food or whatever. But we've been trying to give them everything they need to not have a reason to come out. We're not supplying them with alcohol or drugs, obviously, but we are supplying them with food, barbecue grills, sleeping bags, tents, toilet paper, the necessities to keep them where they're at, so they don't have to go too far away, and they can just pretty much stay right there in that area and not be the problem that they were when they were here in the park downtown.
So Elgin is still lacking something then. So I mean, because so you've gotten that group of people, let's say, out of the immediate downtown area, which helps downtown a little bit, and got them off on their own, where they shouldn't really bother anybody necessarily, is from making noise or having fights or whatever. But that still doesn't help them in terms of bouncing back and trying to get out of there. Just kind of
It just kind of provides for the needs in the moment.
Yeah.
Really, what this town needs is what other cities that have had a large homelessness problem have now. We need a low threshold shelter, which is a shelter that will take everybody without serious restriction. Basically anybody can come in regardless of their criminal background, their current drug or alcohol use status, and their behavior will dictate whether they're able to stay or not, rather than other things, exterior things. We don't have that. PADS does good work. They do help a lot of people. But because of the way they're set up, and I think it probably has a lot to do with the type of insurance that they carry, they're not able to take certain types of people. And, that leaves a lot of people falling through the cracks. We got a big crack in Elgin where all these people are falling through. And we need to fill that, and the filler is a low threshold shelter. And I know that's the mayor and the city council have been talking about that. I think they finally come to realize that is a necessity here, especially after the summer, because our homeless population grew by about 20 people in the past few months.
Yeah.
That's a huge number. If you look at you have somewhere between 100 and 200 people that are categorized homeless. All right. We have about 30 in the original tent city. We have anywhere between 10 and 20 in the new camp, depending on the night. And then we have about another, dozen or so that are still out here downtown on the street. All right. That 20 that's in the camp, that's brand new within the past 3-4 months. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's a growth rate that's unbelievable when you take 150 to 200 people, add 20 to it. It's a high percentage.
Yeah.
And I think because of the pandemic and just the way things are going right now, that number is probably going to increase by the beginning of the year. And we're going to see even more people. We need to have something other than, especially we're about to go into winter.
Yeah.
All right. These people that we just moved into the camp,
they probably don't know how to camp.
They don't know how to camp, number one. I've had several of them tell me, I've never been camping. Okay. Let alone survive a Chicagoland winter in a tent.
Yeah.
It's not easy. You really got to be thinking, and you got to do a lot of work to fortify your site and make sure that you can stay warm and not freeze to death. So we're trying to help them with that and teach them with that. But I mean, if by the first of the year we see that, let's just say the new number of 20 doubles to 40 by the beginning of the year, that's 40 people that have no idea how to survive out here on the street in the winter and nowhere to go. What do we do?
Yeah, and that new threshold's not going to be up by...
No, that's going to take at least a few years to get going. Once they're done talking about it and they actually start doing, But I mean, the way these kinds of things work, they have to plan it and they have to figure out who's going to run it, who's going to fix it. The building that they're looking at, I think PADS wants to become a low threshold shelter, is what I was reading in the paper a couple of weeks ago, and they're looking at a building that I looked at 2 years ago when I was on the show last.
Yeah.
And that was the old DHR building over on 31 by the the eastbound 20 exit, right there on the corner across from the Secretary of State's office.
Yeah.
Which would be a great building. It's big enough. But when I was looking at it and I talked to the city about it, they said that it had been sitting at that time for 10 years and it was going to cost probably about $1.5 million to get it up to code. So, I mean, everything in the building is outdated. The building's going to have to be gutted. It's going to cost a fortune to get that going. It's going to take time.
Yeah.
I don't see that becoming a shelter anytime soon.
So is there a low threshold shelter around? Does Aurora have one?
Aurora has one, but one of the stipulations for any of the area shelters, with the exception of the Rockford Rescue Mission, you have to be an area resident to get in. And I understand the need for that, because if you didn't have that kind of stipulation, you'd have people coming from all over the place, and you would be overloaded like that.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to prove area residency to get in, and that makes sense. That otherwise your resources become tapped instantly with the influx of people that you have. The only one that doesn't do that I've sent people up there is Rockford Rescue Mission. They take anyone.
So some folks could, maybe if they can make it over to Rockford, choose
They could
over
get
Elgin.
if they have room. They will take anybody.
Yeah.
I've sent people there from here.
So we're going to have somewhere in the area of between 50 and 100 people here in the area in Elgin who are going to try to be surviving outdoors this wintertime, probably, right?
Yeah, and the next problem that may arise, and I haven't heard that there will be a temporary shelter, as you know, every winter for the past several years. First United Methodist Church hosts a warming center, they call it. It's basically it's a temporary overnight shelter. When the temperature drops below 15 degrees, they open up, and they've had various groups running it. My group ran it for 2 years. We don't know if that's going to happen this year, and everything's kind of up in the air. And I'm a little worried, because usually by this time, here we are, October 1st.
Yeah.
Winter's right around the corner.
Yeah.
I've opened up that shelter on Thanksgiving, because the temperature dropped down so low. One Thanksgiving, we were open all weekend, I think 4 days straight, because of the temperature just dipped early in the season. So by October 1st, if it's happening, they have usually been asking for volunteers and resources to be able to open the shelter and getting ready to do that, because we're looking at, possibly within the next 8 weeks having to open the shelter. And it takes time to gather all that stuff and get all the people lined up. It takes a lot of people to do that. If you have a week where the temperature is below 15 degrees and that shelter has to be open for that week straight, it takes a lot of people, especially now. The way they have been running it is they're doing, I think, 4-hour shifts, and the shelter's open from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So they're doing 4-hour shifts overnight. You have to have, I think the stipulation was 4 people in the shelter, running the shelter for every shift. That's a lot of people. It's a major undertaking to be able to do that. It requires a lot of volunteers.
So what you're saying is you'd pretty much have an idea by October 1st that it was going to happen, if it was for sure. And since that really hasn't been announced yet, it's a little bit scary.
The last thing I heard about it, and that was a week ago, was that they're still talking about it. They're meeting with the city, and there's various groups that are involved.
Why would it not happen this year?
My guess would be COVID.
Yeah.
The pandemic.
Gosh. Well, let's see. Do we want to risk getting COVID or freezing to death?
Well, I know the area shelters, and I've talked to Hesed House, I've talked to PADS, I've talked to a few of the drug rehabs that I use to, get people rehabilitated. Nobody is taking anyone new because of COVID. So I can understand why the church would be, reluctant to open up as a temporary shelter at this time. That congregation in that church is elderly. I think 85 or 90% of the congregation is elderly.
Yeah.
Which is one of the at-risk groups.
Yeah.
So I can understand why they would be seriously considering not doing it this year, and I don't blame them at all. You would want to bring that into the congregation. It could have disastrous effects.
There's probably a completely logical reason why this is not an option at all, but it just popped into my head. The fact that they kind of rehabbed the old Sherman Hospital to take in COVID patients, if that huge influx of COVID cases.
Oh yeah, they spent a whole bunch of money on that.
And
had the Army Corps come in and redo the old Sherman. Yep.
Could we do anything with that now that the space is probably up to code and ready to go?
I would think you could. The only stickler for that one would be the neighborhood.
Neighborhood, yeah.
And we'd have to transport them there because it's not that close to downtown. It'd be quite a walk when it gets below zero. That's.
And as soon as you go outside, you're in a neighborhood.
Yeah.
So that's true.
Yeah, and they're right. That building is surrounded by residential.
Mm-hmm.
At least the church is downtown. It's surrounded by business. Okay, the effects on the area are different.
Right.
A residential area is going to be affected in a very different way.
Sure, and it's not necessarily fair to those who've lived in that neighborhood for a long time, and they have a nice house that they've lived in that neighborhood because they love that neighborhood.
Sure, and I understand the NIMBY, philosophy. Not in my backyard. I mean, we're dealing with people that have serious issues, and those issues tend to come out and affect the area that they're in, and it's just a reality.
Well, Greg, anything else we need to talk about this morning while you're here? I mean, we can have you back anytime, and as we find out what's going to go on with the church or any new developments that you have, let me know, and you can just come in and pop in for a few minutes and talk about it.
Sure, I'd be glad to. First of all, I want to say hi to Kath Edwards, who's sitting right out there in her car listening to the show. Hi, Kath.
She knows us all.
I want to say hello to our director at Project Give Hope, Sarah Stark. I want to say hi to Gene Eckenberg, the head of the breakfast ministry over at Vineyard Church. I want to say hi to Lenore Navarez. I want to say hi to Nancy Gongaware, who has been bringing resources from Christ Community Church to help with our homeless friends. There's so many people involved in helping, and I don't think anybody realizes how many people and organizations are actually involved with being down here on the street and providing for these people and trying to fill their basic needs. It's been a blessing for me to meet all these people and be able to work with them. Kath over here, she works at the breakfast ministry. She just comes in, bless her heart, she volunteers. There's so many like her that they have a heart for these people and they want to help. And I just want to make sure that they get recognized and that the organizations like the Vineyard Church does a lot for the homeless community. They get recognized because there is so much time and effort and money that goes into helping these people that, they are the most needy people in our community. They need the most help because they don't have anything. They have nowhere to go. They have no home, no job, no money. We got a guy walking around, his pants are falling off him. They're falling apart. His shoes are just deteriorated. He needs shoes. And it's people like Kath and Lenore and Nancy, and the Vineyard Church and all the churches that participate in the soup kitchens that help fill these needs. They all come up with clothing and shoes and blankets and sleeping bags, women's hygiene products, and just all the resources that these people need just to be able to survive.
Yeah, I was just thinking to myself a couple days ago when I saw one of the same guys that I see all the time walking around here. I was like, you know what? Why I know who he is? Because he's had the same jacket on for the last
10 years.
Yeah, who knows how long. Every time I've ever seen him, he's wearing the same jacket. That's how I identify him.
Even in the summer.
Yeah, even in the middle of the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was like, that guy must live in that jacket, man.
Yep.
Which is, he needs a new coat.
Yep.
But maybe he doesn't, maybe he's not one of those that really is trying to do anything different. So he sticks with the same thing. But anyway, 9:53 here at WRMN. So I want to make sure I mention this. Eric Taylor's chimed in with us this morning on Facebook Live.
Hi, Eric.
He asked about the Old Sherman Hospital, which I didn't even see that before I asked. But then the second thing is, he's mentioned a couple times, or a couple different people have when I've had Anna Lally on. Tiny house community here in Elgin for the homeless. Is this ever talked about, or is this a realistic possibility, or how do you see that?
That's been a subject that's been thrown around in our organization and among the volunteers that I've worked with. I think the problem with that, the only problem I can see with that is the real estate. Where would we put it, and, would the city even allow it?
What would you do? Have a bunch of tiny houses and a big gate around the community or something, so everybody has to stay there?
Well, no, we couldn't lock them in.
It's not
they're
a jail,
not in prison.
Right? Yeah,
we're just giving them a place to live. But yeah, that would be a pretty large undertaking, and that would cost a lot of money. Because I've actually looked into that, and I think the average cost for one of those tiny houses is about $10,000. in materials.
Yeah.
And then volunteers would build it. So, 40 of them, there's $40,000 in materials. And then you need to run utilities.
Yeah, it would be, if it's $10,000 a house and it's 40, that's $400,000 right off the bat. Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to need to run sewer. You're going to need to run power. You're going to need to run water. Out to, because I would imagine that any place we could do that would be an undeveloped piece of land outside of town. I don't see it happening anywhere in town. It wouldn't work. It would have to be in an outlying area that doesn't have anything. I mean, so the cost would be a lot.
And then there would have to be a store or something on the property or someplace, because if they're outside of town, how are they going to suddenly...
Exactly. You take them all the way out of town, how are they going to get
anywhere?
Anything? It would be a constant, delivery of products that they would use, just to survive. Food and, hygiene and whatnot. So yeah, that would be difficult to do here in Elgin.
It's a great concept, I think.
It's an awesome concept, and it's worked in other places. I don't know if it would work here.
Yeah.
It'd be great. I'd love to see it, but I don't have high hopes for that being a solution here in Elgin.
I hear you. Well, Greg, appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming in. And
thanks for having me.
Like I said, you got my phone number, man. We talk to each other. So let me know as the new developments come about, and you can come in anytime and just let us know what's going on.
All right, we'll do. Maybe next time I'll bring my guitar.
You can do that, too. You play well. I've seen it on Facebook.
Thank you.
9:56 here at WRMN AM 1410 and 96.7 FM. It's Greg Schiller joining us this morning, advocate for the homeless, and it's going to be an interesting time of the year soon with the cold weather on the way, so we'll see what happens. The morning wake-up call, first shift continues. Please stay with us.